few years ago, I did a video listing my top 10 favorite video games of all time, and you know what? Not much has changed. However, some things have. Yes, in that short time, this old boy has played some of the newer titles, and by newer, I mean they came out a couple years ago, so bite me. I've also had a change of heart after booting up some of those classics that have been collecting dust over the years. So without further ado, here's my updated top 10 list of all-time favorite games. Number 10. In my favorite post-2000 video games video, I put this game in the number 1 spot, and I believe I said that if it had been a top 11 list of best video games, this would have made the spot. If you recall, my original pick for the number 10 spot was Star Wars Shadows of the Empire, and while it was an amazing game back in 1997, it hasn't exactly aged well. It's still fun to play, but in the end, I had to decide what I'd rather be playing. And damn it, GTA 5 is still something that haunts me, even after 2.5 years.
Trevor? Michael. Hey. It's good to see you, man. Yeah, I bet it is.
Keep in mind, this was the game that introduced me to the franchise. Aside from that first title on the PC and the original PlayStation, my, how the times have changed. Playing as not one, but 3 central characters, you get to drive around the streets of Los Santos, committing all sorts of heinous acts, like murdering helpless pedestrians, stealing cars, crashing through corrupt car dealerships, torturing people who can barely fend for themselves, and even, yes, say it with me, going on heists. I've always wanted to be involved in a heist and not have to take the heat for it. I know most of this happened in previous games, but GTA 5 does it with style. I've never seen a more gorgeous looking game, and I played it on the PS3. Now, graphics don't mean everything, but when you've got a game that looks this freaking good, it certainly doesn't hurt the replay value. There's not one moment in this game that drags its feet. Sure, controlling a helicopter takes some getting used to, and no, I had no idea how to start manipulating the stock market, but at the end of the day, GTA 5 is just fun. I can't say anything that hasn't already been said, but only in this universe does it feel so satisfying to play 3 incredibly hard-ass douchebags.
F***ing shit! Who the f*** are you speaking to?
And trust me, I say that with love and affection. We love you, GTA. Number 9. Since my last video, something big happened. There was a new Doom game. Whether it's a sequel or a reboot, it got the job done. Those who felt Doom 3 relied a bit too much on the jump scares and held back on that Fast and Furious strafe and fire action probably had loved this new incarnation, which took the series back to its roots. It is undeniably Doom, and while it's a good game, there's no denying its incredibly cheap difficulty, including insanely hard demons that all seem to take like a gazillion hits, except for the Imps, because those guys are pushovers. So sorry, the spot still goes to the original king of first-person shooters. I played it recently, and it's still amazingly fun. No, you can't look in all directions, and there's only 2 boss battles in the whole game, but where it shines is its amusing pixelated atmosphere, its creative cast of hellish bad boys, its kick-ass soundtrack, and look at those weapons. You've got a chainsaw, a shotgun, a plasma rifle, and of course, the slightly cheap BFG. There's no only 2 guns at a time rule. We're talking to you, Duke Nukem Forever.
Power armor is for pussies.
No, if you find them, every single weapon is at your disposal. Cinemassacre's Mike Matei said it best.
It was great for what it was. It's a great, new remake of Doom, but I would rather play the original any day of the week, you know?
Classic Doom, will you have my baby? Number 8. The original list named Super Mario 64 as the definitive Mario game. But you know what? After having some time to sleep on it, and after playing the insanely popular Mario Maker for all of 5 minutes, I realized that Mario probably works best as a 2D side-scroller. Yes, Mario 64 was a huge innovation when it came out, and it's actually one of the few early 3D platforming games that's still fun to play. But when it comes to overall replay value and near perfection, well, it just doesn't get much better than Super Mario World. I'm not exaggerating. It's a near-flawless game. Sure, it didn't have all the innovation that Mario 3 brought to the table, but when you consider how late into the NES's lifespan Mario 3 came along, and how much of the Super NES's potential was displayed in this launch title, it's obvious that Mario World was ambitious. No one had ever seen graphics like this before. The story is pretty much a remake of Mario 3, as you go up against Bowser and his bratty Koopa kids once again.
Daddy, do something! We're about to be infested by those pesky plumbers!
But whereas the boss battles were kind of repetitive before, each encounter in Mario World threw in a slightly different mechanic, making it more fun. Like in Mario 3, Mario World lets you fly with the use of a cape. That you got with a feather, which makes as much sense as a brown leaf turning you into a raccoon so you can fly, which again proves my point that if you do enough drugs, you too can create a really good Mario game. And while it wasn't a huge change up in the gameplay, it was fun riding Yoshi for the first time. He gave you that additional free hit, and he let you know you weren't going to have to go solo this time. Hell, he was still a lot more useful than that loser brother of yours. Super Mario World is a game I keep coming back to more than 20 years after its release, and there's a good reason for that. Number 7. The only PS1 game on the list, Twisted Metal 2 is still the end-all vehicular combat game. Some would argue that it's the only good game in the franchise, and they're not too far from the mark. Most sequels tend to keep rehashing the same things over and over again, but if it ain't broke, you know the rest. Taking to the streets tournament style, your goal is simply to make it to the end of 8 incredibly tough levels so that you can ask Calypso to grant you whatever you want. Pretty sweet deal, right? For most of these guys, no, it kinda sucked. Having your face stretched all over the sky, I'd rather just be taken out in combat. But this is an undeniably fun game, and if you use some of the cheat codes, like super machine guns and homing napalms, it takes the fun factor to a whole new level. The co-op mode slows the game down a bit, but it makes for a good party game. A party that only you and your friend were invited to, but still. The graphics are a little rough, but as an early PlayStation game, they're still appealing, and good God, that soundtrack. These guys should have an album. One of the things that plagued the later games in the series were the controls. I don't know if Sony tried to make the vehicles handle more realistically or tried to make each character feel more diverse, but there's something very simple and satisfying about how this game plays, and 989 Studios should have taken notes. This is not a game you mess with. Number 6. Oh, Naughty Dog, if only I could have met your acquaintance 10 years ago. There are story-driven games like Metal Gear Solid, which have an enormous amount of cutscenes, profoundly memorable characters, and play like interactive movies. But let's face it, if you suck at the stealth genre, good luck being able to enjoy any of it. No, one of the things that works incredibly well with all of the Uncharted games is that even when it gives you the choice to go stealth, it doesn't penalize you if you fail. A decent challenge is a good thing, but when the computer AI is as smart as a real-life mercenary, that's asking a bit much of the casual gamer. I was recently blessed to experience all 4 of the Uncharted games, and each one struck a chord in different ways. I've gone back and forth between Uncharted 3 and 4. Uncharted 3, Drake's Deception, has such huge set pieces, and whereas the first 2 games skimped out on Sully, my favorite character in the franchise, they made him the focus here. The puzzles were also the most fun to solve, and I've got to say, hearing Sully give Nate his fatherly speech at the end tugged at some heartstrings. But when it comes to presentation, to character building, and to overall scope, I have to say that I felt the most satisfied with Naughty Dog's latest venture, Uncharted 4: A Thief's End. Now, truth be told, I'm a hopeless romantic, and the real heart of the games, for me, was the blossoming romance between Nate and his now wife, Elena Fisher. In the first 2 games, she was pretty much the token Bond girl, but by Uncharted 3, it was made clear that they had an established history, and that things weren't going so well.
Why don't you just, walk away?
Oh, me? Me walk away.
To see them not only together, but having very mature conversations about the course of their relationship, watching them argue about who does the dishes, and having mundane discussions about their everyday work lives, it feels like a real marriage, and that isn't something I've ever seen in a game before. Now, one of the criticisms of the game is the introduction of Nate's brother, Sam Drake, who is never so much as alluded to in previous installments. 9 times out of 10, when a character's backstory gets retconned, it never works. But here, I feel Naughty Dog took extreme care to preserve the continuity. Is Sam shoehorned in? Absolutely. The game jumps several time periods to explain how, after all these years, Nate has a sibling that no one's ever heard of. It works because the developers used the empty space, the parts of the timeline we didn't witness in the previous games, to fill in the gaps rather than simply overwrite existing events to satisfy the story. And I'll be honest, I love the Sam character. The way he is written, you're never sure if you're able to completely trust him, and yet you're always reminded that he cares for his younger brother.
Nathan, he's right. Things have changed. Rafe's involved now, and I can take this on my own, really.
There's deception, sure, but he's played with such sincerity, and he becomes such an integral part of the story that it just works. The scenes, and there's a couple of them where Nate and Sam are reunited, are riveting to watch, and by the end of it all, you feel like something more important than treasure was gained here. Then there are the action set pieces. I mean...
Don't panic!
Just... And I mean... You know what? I'll let Sam express how I felt.
Holy goddamn shit, Nathan!
That's your idea of speechless?
This was literally the first game I played on the PlayStation 4. Okay, this and Doom, I can't lie. And it made me proud to be a PlayStation owner. It's an exhilarating story filled with action, adventure, puzzle solving, pirates, mummy bombs.
Says the guy who set off every mummy bomb in this place.
Well, not a lot of experience with the mummy bombs. Thank you.
Romance, and yes, even Sully.
Know what I love about partying with a bunch of crooks?
What's that?
Nobody cares if you smoke indoors.
Filled with some really cool callbacks to the past games, including one game not Uncharted related.
Old school.
This is one title I'm anxious to revisit soon, and I've already played through it twice. Number 5. Okay, now back to some good old-fashioned nostalgia. The only 2 Mario Kart games I really got into were the original and Mario Kart 64. And while I felt that ultimately Mario Kart 64 was a great update, with cute pre-rendered graphics and some insanely large courses, it all comes down to which one is more fun to play. And it's really, really hard to decide. In terms of single player, I'd say Mario Kart 64 is the definitive title, despite the bastard AI. In what world do you fire a direct hit with a homing shell, then turbo toward first place, only to be snubbed by the guy who you knocked into last place just seconds ago? I was told as a kid that video games don't cheat, but screw you, Mom and Dad. Mario characters are a-holes.
I'm Wario. I'm gonna win.
All joking aside, the controls are just more fluent, and the courses are better designed. It's a really fun game, and it carries a sense of nostalgia, just like the original game. Then we have the multiplayer, which I would say again trumps the original just because it handles up to 4 players. But when you look at the 4 multiplayer arenas, 3 of them are really uninspired. Seriously, Nintendo, you have us racing around a giant lava-filled donut like idiots? The multiplayer in Super Mario Kart was limited to 2 players, but I've got to say the courses were so much fun. And they were just the right size. In Mario Kart 64, you could spend several minutes just trying to find anyone. Honestly, the only thing that kind of hinders the experience of the SNES game is the controls, which are tricky to master. The SNES had that Mode 7 thing going on, which looked awesome at the time, but sometimes made racing games kind of awkward to play. The N64 offered true 3D environments, so there is no need for Mode 7 trickery. That being said, I recently played Super Mario Kart with a friend, and it was a blast. This game is the real nostalgia trip, and given that they're now up to Mario Kart 8, the fact that the original is still the most fun is a testament to just how far ahead of its time it really was. Number 4. I didn't say a whole lot about this one the last time, and given its spot on the list, what the hell was I smoking? Truth be told, if it weren't for the incredibly detailed graphics, this would be just another lame Mario knockoff, even if you do play as one of Nintendo's oldest characters. Or, at least a relative. I never really knew the story there. The point is, yes, the graphics and the music are fantastic, but the game is still incredibly fun to play. It's a bit on the easy side, waiting for the sequel to add some real challenge to the mix, but everyone was talking about this game when it came out. If you look at it today, you'd think it was an HD remix of an older game. It still looks good in today's current generation of HD this and 4K that. I actually think it looks better than the recent Wii and Wii U games. Yeah, I just said that. I know I've gone on and on about the graphics, and you're probably saying to yourselves, but what about the gameplay? Well, it plays more or less like a platformer. You run, you jump, you swim, you fly, you collect things, you play through bonus levels, you fight bosses, you ride on animals, you collect letters which give you free guys, you ride on mine carts, you jump around on the forest moon of Endor. You can't fool us with those tree houses, Rare. It takes the all-too-familiar formula of fun platforming and just adds a bunch of cool things to it, and they made it their own thing. It's just too memorable to pass up. In fact, I don't want to stop recording the footage to finish the review. Screw you, Internet. I'm playing me some Donkey Kong Country. Number 3. Yes, alas, a new Mortal Kombat game has come and gone, and while it looks amazing and pretty much feels like a Mortal Kombat game, the only reason I played it was because of Jason Voorhees, Leatherface, Alien, and Predator. And you couldn't give us Freddy this time around? Seriously, NetherRealm, what the hell? As fun as it is to perform the sleeping bag death on Scorpion or ram Leatherface's chainsaw up someone's ass, the game as a whole can't compete with one of its earlier entries, Mortal Kombat 2. I don't know what else to add that I didn't cover the last time around. I play this thing at least once a month, whether it be on my laptop on MAME or on my PS3 in the Mortal Kombat Collection Pack. It's fast, it's funny, it's awesome, it's my favorite fighting game. Take that, Capcom fanboys! Number 2. Okay, putting recent games on this list isn't really my style, but it's no mistake that Naughty Dog has 2 games that I now hold in high regard. The Last of Us, simply put, is what got me excited about gaming again. I'm always criticizing the state of today's games. The graphics are too realistic. There's too many cutscenes. It's too hard. It's like playing a movie. Why did the campaign only last 6 hours long? Look at this cover, right there. See that? Winner of 200 awards. It's actually being hailed as the Citizen Kane of video games. More like The Walking Dead of video games, with its apocalyptic pseudo-zombie setting, but I'm sure Naughty Dog has no problem with the former. I'm always skeptical when a game gets this much praise because I'm shallow and I'm seldom ever able to look beneath the story's surface, which explains why I didn't like Citizen Kane. Now everyone's probably seen the first 20 minutes of the game, if not played through it, and they know how heart-wrenching it is. But if you actually played past the game's very depressing prologue, what you'd find is a game. One hell of a game. If you haven't heard of the game, here's what it is. You're Joel, this dude from the South who's given up on everything because he, well, just play through the first 20 minutes and you'll understand why Joel is Joel. As a smuggler, you're tasked with smuggling a 14-year-old girl out of the Boston quarantine zone while making it past trigger-happy soldiers, the infected, and clickers. Oh God, the clickers. God help me if I never hear that sound again. God damn it! At its most basic level, it's a zombie apocalypse story. Okay, there are no zombies per se, but you catch my drift. Buildings are in shambles and everyone fends for themselves. Zombie apocalypse. The heart of the story is Joel's interactions with Ellie, the young girl you're charged with smuggling out of the city. This isn't your typical innocent flower child who constantly gets in the way while you try to save her from a zombie horde, like the president's daughter in Resident Evil 4. No, Ellie grew up in a post-apocalyptic world, and she's been raising hell ever since the day she was born. When she first encounters Joel, she actually tries to stab him. She also drops more F-bombs than any character in gaming history.
You handcuffed
I
him.
need you to shut up.
And yet, for whatever reason, you're able to relate to this girl. She feels like a real character.
Light on the reading, but it's got some interesting photos.
Now, Ellie, that ain't for kids.
Whoa! How the hell would he even walk around with that thing?
Get rid of that.
Well, hold your horses. I want to see what all the fuss is about.
Yes, there are dumb moments where you have to constantly take her across a river or a stream because she can't swim. She can handle a rifle and hunting just fine, but she never got swimming down.
All right, I need you to...
I know. Step on the f***ing pallet.
But she's also not one of these NPCs that gets in your way, obscuring your path or taking tons of enemy fire while you try to shuffle her to safety. In fact, Ellie fights back.
I'm glad I didn't get my head blown off by a goddamn kid.
There are too many memorable moments to touch on, but by the end of the game, you're left feeling both relieved and exhausted. It's a thrilling and, at times, stressful experience. I might still do a full review, but given that it's 3 years old, I wouldn't be able to do it justice. Just understand that for someone who's been in the dark for the last decade, the fact that this game got me back in the fold is one hell of a compliment. And yes, this is another one that I played through twice. Number 1. Yeah, the one and only is still at the number 1 spot. I just blazed through it again and it never gets old. Now, I am not a Zelda fan by any stretch of the imagination. I played Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link a lot as a kid, and while it was fun and it was memorable, I never finished it. It was hard. Link to the Past was the same thing. When it came out, I just wasn't good at solving puzzles. In fact, in order to get good at it, I had to buy an unofficially licensed strategy guide to find where all the goodies were. That's right, I was like Richard Rahl in Wizard's First Rule, forcing myself to memorize a book for the good of mankind. Except Richard's cause was a little more vital. I was just trying to win at a video game. My feeling with all the recent Zelda games is that they're just too complex and involved. In the time it takes me to complete the entire campaign of A Link to the Past, I might explore one dungeon in Twilight Princess. It's ridiculous. I'll take a fun, short campaign over a long, drawn-out one any day of the week. What about my favorite moments in the game? That's something I haven't touched upon. How about that moment when you're really low on rubies and then you stumble into a treasure chest that completely makes up for it? And each time you level up your sword, making the game that much easier. When you finally get the running boots and realize you can get through the game like twice as fast. What about the boss battles? There are a few lame ones like the floating eye boss in Misery Mire. Come on guys, really? I can just stand here and keep stabbing you and your little floaty eyeball babies until you're all dead. However, I like most of the bosses in the Dark World. The Helmasaur King, Argus. Use the hookshot, Link. And my personal favorite, Trinex, the devious three-headed turtle you exchange blows with inside of Turtle Rock. The Ganon fight, if you know what to do, is pretty easy, but at the end of the day, you feel like you played one hell of an adventure, and just in time for dinner, too. This game once again showcased the capabilities of the Super NES and is a shining example of why the console is so revered, even today. It's that good.